Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. All of us are worried about what's happening in the Gulf Coast, but few of us understand what's happening geologically. We don't get accurate reports. We're getting bits and pieces of information. We need to talk to somebody who can explain this to us. Chris Landau, who's a geologist and also a meteorologist by trade, is here to explain to us what is happening. He has participated in oil and gas rigs, and he's done over 50. He has been involved in water well drilling. You can read his work on Op-Ed News. On an emergency level, I think we need to understand how serious what's happening is and what information we need to know and to share with our friends and loved ones and associates that needs to be focused on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Chris Landau to It's Rainmaking Time. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Kim. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Chris, what do we need to know as citizens of the United States, and what does the world need to know about what's really happening?
Well, the most serious event is that we have a well in the Gulf of Mexico with a probable blown-out formation and a blown-out casing, and the cement has damaged, and the oil and gas is probably coming through the sea floor, according to Senator Bill Nelson, who announced that a few days ago from Florida. The directional wells that they're drilling down to 18,000 feet will have no effect in sealing the well because they're putting mud and cement in a blown-out formation, blown-out casing. What that means is that if you have a car tire with 50 holes in it and you try and pump air into it, and these are big holes, we all know that the air is going to go straight out the tire. The picture that they're giving us of the well is also a textbook picture that you would get when you were in primary school, say age 8, 10 years of age, where we've got one layer that they're drilling down to with the directional wells. There are probably 50 layers from 5,000 feet down to 18 to 20,000 feet. And I've been asking in my articles for the last 2-3 weeks, and perhaps longer, for them to publish the mud logs. The mud logs are our evidence, the forensic evidence of what actually happened on this drilling rig. They will tell us the mud weight they used, whether they were using water-based mud or oil-based mud. I assume they were using oil-based mud because they were drilling offshore. And what was the density of the mud at the bottom when the well blew out? They were having problems controlling the gas coming out the well. But what we've got to really look forward to here is an endless supply of oil and gas into the Gulf at, 60,000 barrels per day plus. And there's nobody with a plan in force and no proposed plan to stop it. When you put mud and cement into a well, when you drill that well, you drill with mud, and the purpose of the mud is to keep the hole open while you're drilling the well, and also to bring the cuttings or the chopped up rock to the surface. The mud serves two purposes, as I said: bring the stuff up, bring the gas up, so that the mud logging geologist can tell at what layers he's getting oil and gas, and then it also just keeps the oil and gas out of the well while you're drilling. If you remove the mud, the oil and gas comes roaring out of the well, and you have explosions on the surface as happened. So the big thing is you need to keep the mud weight up. You need to keep on putting barium sulfate, or in heavy wells, hematite sulfate, iron sulfate into the well to keep that oil and gas out of the well while you're drilling. Only once you've produced the well or you've finished with the well do you put a steel piping in from top to bottom, and then you blast holes in that piping once you've sealed it all with cement at various layers, starting at the bottom of the well, and then over a period of months or years, cementing in the well from the bottom to the top. So it's very controlled once the well is finished. But if you have, while you're drilling and you putting too much barium sulfate into the well, you can have a density greater than the rock, and you can blow out that well. In other words, you push the barium sulfate and the drilling mud into the formation, and then you lose the drilling mud instantly, and the hole becomes empty, and the gas and oil come roaring out of the hole. So you've got to have a fine balance between not too much mud weight and not too little. Too little, and the gas also comes out and the oil comes out. Too much, you blow out the formation and it all comes out. I'll stop there for a moment. Kim.
In your article, you talk about the distinction between new oil and old oil, and why is this important that we know this?
For years we've been taught, and I was taught as a geologist and growing up, that oil is from plankton, buried under heat and pressure, and basically it's going to last a certain length of time until the reservoir where it was created underground is emptied. And oil is very old. We've been taught that, and parts of the oil is very old. It was created a long time ago. But there's also theories that were put out originally by the Russians back in the 50s, and by the guy who did the periodic table, Mendeleev, Dmitry Mendeleev, who thought that oil and gas were inorganic. And when I began to log wells for the period of 2006 to 2007, I began to question when I noticed the oil and gas above, below, and inside calcareous sandstone horizons. That didn't seem to make sense. These zones were not the traps, they were actually the creation zones for oil and gas. And when you have fault zones through that area, you increase more hydrogen sulfide to the rock formation, and the hydrogen sulfide acts as a reductant, and it reduces calcareous formations and carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide to oil and gas. It starts by reducing them to methane, and methane combines with sodium chloride to form methyl chlorides, and you string the methyl chlorides together to form methyl, ethyl, butyl, pentyl chlorides, and eventually the chlorides are dropped and you have the pentane molecules, or you have N-alkanes or paraffin molecules. So this is called the Wirtz synthesis. I didn't invent it, I just recognized it, and salt domes contribute towards oil and gas formation. The other good process is called the Fischer-Tropsch process, which is done in South Africa. 30% of South Africa's oil is produced by the Fischer-Tropsch process of taking carbon monoxide and water and heating that under great pressure to create alkanes, again stringing these methane, ethane, propane molecules together to get to pentane, and then trimethylpentane to form octane, which is our gasoline. So there are quite a few methods of creating oil and gas inorganically, and I believe coal is also inorganic. Those are my theories. They're not part of mainstream geology, and there are probably 5 to 10% of geologists that believe it. I believe in the eastern part of this world, in Russia and that area, Sweden, there are many more people that believe it. I've written papers and published them in 2008 and 2009 with the American Institute of Petroleum Geologists. These are peer-reviewed papers, and with the Association of Engineering Geologists. On my theories, they're available on the internet. You can go to opednews.com and put in Chris Landau, CHRISLANDAU, and look at it. The main situation which makes it interesting is that if this oil is new oil, that means it's being created right now. That means it's 10, 20, 50, 100 years old. That oil's going to go on forever. It's never going to stop. If it's old oil, let's say it's highly pressurized old oil and it's a couple of million years old, that's fine too, but it's highly pressurized oil and it's still going to go on for a few years.